So in continuation of the best race day shoe of 2024 comparison, I bring to you again the Nike Alphafly 3 and the Adidas Adizero Pro 3. Let's compare and contrast these two shoes and find out which one's the better racer. So before we get into the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed watching the content, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of other updates and things like that. So without further ado, let's begin. Specs for both shoes up here. And we'll keep it short and sweet once again. Just kind of, again, I have individual breakdowns and deep dives for the shoes in their meticulous specs and whatnot, but I'll reference them if they're important to the comparison itself. So starting with the shoe that's a little bit older here, it's the Adios Pro 3, which I've used multiple times and I've said many good things about as a race day shoe, as something I've trained in, as a predecessor, the Boston 11, and how those specs kind of influenced this wonder of a shoe. And again, in this comparison, I'm aware that the Adizero Prime X and X2 exist, and those are like the Alphafly to the Vaporfly of the Adidas brand, I would say. So we're going to keep that in notes. Kind of the same way in my A6 video, I'm aware that the Metaspeed Sky Paris exists over the Metaspeed Sky Plus. It's just access, right? That's a $400 shoe in the Adidas branch. That I think it's the X2 that has like double stack carbon plates and all that. Doesn't matter. We're not here to talk about that yet. One day we will, just not now. So with this shoe, specs, just as a reminder, again, we do have 39.5 in the heel, 33 in the forefoot, giving it about a 6.5 millimeter offset. So somewhere in between that 4 millimeter and 8 millimeter kind of natural feel. A little bit more forgiving depending on your running form. It is, again, leaning more towards being an experienced runner spec style shoe, just based on the fact that there's a little bit of weight cutting here on the inside or on the outside area of the shoe. Just so you can kind of lean in more towards striking in this like midfoot area as well. We do have like carbon rods of a plastic sort of build, plastic nylon carbon, not necessarily metallic, and those are really the driving force of the shoe, right? We don't have like a straight carbon plate running in this shoe. That's what the Prime X1 and X2 have as a feature, just not this particular one, right? And then again, we do have sort of like this heat-treated mesh upper with some gluey effects, and it has that streamlined feel of the shoe that made it a really awesome shoe to run multiple races in, including, you know, a half marathon that I did very early this year in the first rendition of shoe that I had that was in white, and then I also ran a few 10Ks and other things like that in this particular shoe. So this one has experience in my race day lineup. Was it the best race day shoe I ever had? I don't think so. It was definitely good for the time, especially since like the Vaporfly Next Percent 1 and 2 were starting to no longer be manufactured, and like the Next Percent 3 was kind of getting pushed out, and that shoe is just, in my opinion, a disaster. So I needed something that resembled more of those Vaporflies, and that's why I opted in for the Adios Pro 3. And for the most part, I liked it. It was a smidgen not quite as fast as I wanted it to be, but that's okay because, again, my fitness this year and sort of early last year was not up to, I guess, like up to where I wanted it to be. So just trying to force those paces that I wanted out of this shoe at the time was kind of tricky, right? So anyways, that's what we need to mention with the Adios Pro 3. With the Alphafly 3, again, nothing too crazy that's unknown to us, right? We do have this carbon plate running the duration of the shoe with air zoom pods on both sides of the shoe that give it that extra rebound, extra propulsion. They are the features that ruin, in my case, maybe you guys have noticed this now, your heart rate monitors, just because the suction cup effect of the pods, they resemble a heartbeat. So if I'm running 160 steps per minute, my heart rate thing says I have 160 beats per minute. It's hilarious because if I do it on a treadmill, completely different. Anyways, tangent, whatever. That's what we have in terms of outsole rebound technology. We do have the heat-treated upper, which again resembles more of what the original Alphafly 1 was running with. And then we don't have too many moving parts in the heel area of the shoe, just enough to kind of give you some cushion and just keep it all together for the most part. So when we talk about them as the better race day shoe, what is the ultimate answer? I would say it depends. even though, again, in this context, you probably might not be surprised, I'm leaning again for the Alphafly 3. And this is sort of a second to best in the lineup versus quote-unquote the best shoe in the lineup of brand respectively, right? This would be probably a different conversation had the Prime X2 been sort of the choice in this video, but again, I just don't have it. I didn't try it. I don't know what to expect of a shoe like that. That is only good for like one marathon and like that's it, right? But in terms of like speed training and longevity, this shoe is probably the shoe that you would want to be looking at, mostly because again, the Continental rubber on the shoe holds up very well against most, if not all, conditions that aren't really like snow, just because you won't get so much grip there. But without the use of the air pods in the forefoot area of the shoes, you don't risk like popping them like you would in this particular shoe. And just the use of the energy rods here, again, it's a unique technology that has a lot of flex, and it's comfortable as far as I remember with running this through a half marathon. That's in terms of like the rebound and of the shoe itself. And then in the upper, again, it runs kind of streamlined, a little bit tighter than usual. That's fine. It's tighter like more in the archway and not so much in the toe box. I don't have any sort of heel rubbing or anything that really bothered me. I think in one of the variants of the shoe, I don't know if this one was giving me issues. I don't recall. Or if it was vice versa, where my later model, or the earlier model I had, was rubbing against the heel and causing issues, and this one was like comfortable. But again, aside from those things and like the lock of the shoe, this is a truly good race day shoe for its price. It's an excellent like everyday race day shoe for tempo threshold workouts. I don't recommend it for easy things because the carbon plate, you want something a little bit softer, right? So all in all, it's a good shoe. It's just in this context, the Alphafly just rides better, right? This thing in the marathon, for me at least, it gave me no issues in terms of muscle soreness that wasn't expected. The shoe was cooperative throughout the entire course of the marathon, minus like me busting my toes on like the toe box area of this shoe. The thing was just in great shape all the way across the race. And being able to withstand a marathon would make you think, hey, I could do well in a half marathon or a 10K in this particular shoe. So I ride that context as also something to consider. And their specs are both safe for like the everyday runner, I would think, with like the 6.5 and 8mm offsets. You know, if your running form is not perfect, then both shoes respectively will give you some forgiveness in terms of just their offsets with like that higher stack heel and then just that slight supination to overcompensate for any sort of overpronation you may experience, right? So it's the same deal in this shoe, just this one is, again, slightly less supinating because of that 6.5. It leans closer to the 4. But once you cross into like the 4mm territory, that's when your natural foot strike is going to be extremely important in the context of running. So again, the Alphafly 3, I think between these two, is the better race day shoe. That being said, when the Prime X2 becomes available to me, it's going to be an interesting comparison that we're going to revisit. So again, if you agree or disagree with this assessment, let me know in the comments below, but I think we're going to leave it at that. So with that in mind, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.